Սալիկների 1 քառակուսի մետրը սկսած ընդամենը 1799 դրամից։ Մանրամասները idealsystem.am.
International expert on human rights, Sheila Palin, will sit down with the First Analytical tonight. Mrs. Palin, thank you for this opportunity.
Thanks for having me back.
Roughly a year has passed since Armenia ratified the Rome Statute, and it has entered into force since February 2024. Yet no judge has been appointed at ICC. There is no case brought to court so far. Why?
Well, we're a long way from a judge being appointed. Certain things would have to happen first. And, you know, mind you, the ratification coming into force was February this year. That's relatively new. It's not been that
half
long.
A year.
Yeah, we're like, slow down. These things take time. And the thing that really has to happen is that the prosecutor needs to decide and has the discretion to decide whether or not to open a case. To get the prosecutor to open a case, we as in, you know, the interested parties would have to persuade him. And the best way for that to happen is for Armenia to refer the case, okay? For that to happen, you know, in the context and the situation that we are in, there are a lot of moving parts and reasons why Armenia might not be in a position or feel ready to do so right now.
Before we pass to the reasons why Armenia has not appointed a judge or brought a case before the court, I would like you to state, is there a process underneath? I know that you have been involved in the works before, so you are the right person to go to. Is there a process that we do not see?
Armenia doesn't appoint a judge. Armenia can refer a case. So Armenia can basically ask the prosecutor to open a case. That is the only thing Armenia can do. And that is the government of Armenia can ask the prosecutor of the International Court to just start looking into the situation. From then on, a series of other things can happen.
Is this happening or not?
This has not happened. No.
Why not?
Well, I mean, I would ask the government, not me, but why not? Probably because there's a peace process going on now, and there's probably the impression that doing something like that, like asking the prosecutor to investigate war crimes of Azerbaijan, would impede the peace process.
Well, then why ratify the Rome Statute? Why acquire a tool that you're not going to use?
Well, no one said they're not going to use it. They've acquired the tool. There's still plenty of time to use it. They just haven't done so in the last 6 months. So I know that there's a very strong sense of urgency, and I personally think we should use it sooner than later. You know, if it were up to me, I would say let's do this. But at the same time, it's not surprising that they haven't just yet, especially when I think the priority is to get a peace treaty, and I can't imagine that a move like that at this stage would be conducive towards getting a treaty of that sort signed. So I can understand, but I'm not sure, you know, we have to remember that peace and justice go hand in hand. So at some point, the justice component will have to be taken into consideration, will have to come into the picture.
On the political front, Azerbaijan has the upper hand, the pronounced support of Russia, and a silent West on ethnic cleansing because of the gas deal. But on the legal front, we could restore the balance in a way. Why not do so, if not through the government, which probably is trying to not harm the peace process, then through a third member country that is friendly, like France or Argentina or others, or through the diaspora, legal organizations?
Okay, there was a lot of elements to that question. I think that, for starters, I wouldn't agree that that Azerbaijan is politically the winner. You know, in the state that we're in right now, the pieces move and the balance move. I don't see a lot of. I want to say this better. I think that Azerbaijan actually has lost a lot of face okay? The way that it's behaved, especially post-ethnic cleansing, especially with its alignment with Russia, and the way that it's distancing the West from it is actually not playing very well for Azerbaijan. It's becoming a little bit more alienated and presenting as a pariah state, increasingly so. Now, is it more powerful? Yes. Azerbaijan is more powerful than us right now militarily, and Azerbaijan definitely has a lot more money than we do, so they can, you know, they can do a lot of more things than we can. But in terms of having the sympathy of major, like we've seen so many changes even since my last interview, so much has changed, so much. So that I wouldn't entirely agree with. And on the legal front, we do have the upper hand. We are the ones bringing the cases forward. The ICJ case, the ECHR cases, these were Armenia initiated. And the fact, I think, that Azerbaijan is requiring or demanding or requesting that we drop those cases speaks to our favor, shows that they're afraid of losing these cases, and shows that that move was a good one because it gave us a chip and a bargaining card that we can now leverage. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not the reason why we started those cases, but they are tools that help us when all of a sudden it becomes one of these requirements that Azerbaijan wants in exchange for something else, you know? Yeah.
Are you saying that unless the government of Armenia coordinates the process, neither the diaspora or a third country will not take a case to ICC for us?
I don't understand the question. I think that Armenia can initiate this on its own at any point, so can request the prosecutor.
And if they do not
if they do not, then it becomes, no, yeah.
Can someone else do it for us? Or will someone else do it for us?
I can't tell you if somebody will. I can tell you if somebody can, and yes, of course. So then it becomes a matter for civil society to maybe try to advocate and persuade third countries, other countries, not third, but other countries, maybe sympathetic to the Armenian cause, especially given our large diaspora. They can engage with their, you know, home countries to try to get a referral from a member state of the ICC, yes, for sure.
There are cases resting, so to speak, in international courts, in European Court of Human Rights, ICJ. The process seems to be stalled. Is the political peace process affecting or stalling the legal process?
Not at all. That would be, I mean, that would be completely inappropriate. So the judges of these courts are not to be swayed in any way by a political process that's going on by the side. It's not stalled, it's just these things take time. The European Court of Human Rights is overwhelmed with applications from all the, you know, people from all the member states. So just because we have filed this and it's been a few years, like, that's actually really, really normal. And it's a huge case. At the ICJ as well, we've just had...
Do you exclude that these might come when it is suitable for the West, when they will need a leverage against
No. The judgments will be delivered as soon as they're ready. There's no consideration. I mean, I've worked with judges of international courts for most of my career. Never does that come into the picture. It's just taking time because it's a big case. And they have a lot on their plate.
Putin arrived in Mongolia, a member state of the ICC that issued a warrant of arrest for Putin. Mongolia ignored the calls to arrest Putin because of the ties, and the court obviously lacks mechanisms to enforce its warrants. What are the conclusions to be drawn? Is ICC overrated? Is this one of the reasons why the government does not go to ICC? Because what we might gain might be smaller than what we might lose, like the peace process.
Look, what happened in Mongolia is not surprising either. When it comes to arresting somebody like Vladimir Putin, it's a lot to expect from, you know, relatively weaker countries. So it's not like when Mongolia ratified the Rome Statute of the ICC, it necessarily thought, well, we'll be the first to arrest Putin. Like, they're supposed to, and I understand it's normal that there would be criticism for not, you know, because they also didn't have to invite Putin, you know, like, knowing this. So That's a political issue. To say that the court doesn't have an enforcement mechanism is also slightly inaccurate. It does. Its mechanism is this. It's that member states are expected to arrest people with warrants for their arrest by the ICC. So the problem here wasn't that there's no mechanism, it's that there was no will on the part of a certain member state to enforce. That was their job.
But nothing happens if the state does not comply with ICC. Therefore, where is the guarantee that when Baku and if Baku officials, military, political personnel are actually
so if this happens,
persecuted, they will be arrested in any other member state.
There's no guarantee. There's no guarantee.
There is a warrant by the ICC.
Okay, there's no guarantee because it really depends on the member state to enforce the arrest warrant. We've seen that with the president of Sudan who continued to travel freely. It will happen, you know, it will happen again until, and let's get real, like it's going to take a very, it's going to be considered by Russia as a hostile act. So it's a scary move, you know, it's a scary move, but I think, you know, at some point, for sure, Putin cannot travel to certain countries who have already expressed, we will arrest you. So it's not, I wouldn't, you asked also if that means the ICC is overrated. No. It's just not perfect. We're expecting perfection from a still relatively new system that we're trying to learn how to deal with.
What are some of the missed windows of opportunity if running cases against Baku in international courts, in the European Court of Human Rights, in ICJ, in ICC, the UN Court?
I think that we have quite a number of treaties that we are that we have ratified that we could have also used against Azerbaijan for the crimes that they committed at the ICJ, and we didn't trigger those, and I don't really understand why, but you know, it's a shame, it's a loss. Like the Mercenaries Convention, even the Genocide Convention, you know, I know that's controversial, but I think that there were grounds to start a case under that, and also the Torture Convention. But more importantly, still go back to the ICC. This is the main missed opportunity, I think, for me, was that we didn't ratify it sooner. Because once Azerbaijan invaded Armenian territory, especially the big one in September 2022, we had the world's attention. And then when the ethnic cleansing happened last year, we really had the world's attention. And the fact that we weren't ready, you know, and I knew that this was going to happen. So we're always catching up, we're always out of breath. And now I think the next time that would be appropriate to really be able to get the momentum to get a case going will only be if Azerbaijan really hits us hard again. And I wish that, I don't want that to happen, you know, that's the whole point of this. So.
Paradoxically, that's the time when we're hit next.
That's when you have the world's attention.
Azerbaijan has been making requirements, putting forth requirements for Armenia if we want a peace treaty. Some of them are legal, like drop the charges in international courts against us, change your constitution because it, quote, unquote, has a territorial claim towards Azerbaijan. Today's Azerbaijan, however, is the legal successor of Musavat Azerbaijan that considers almost 46,000 square kilometers of Armenian territory to be Azerbaijani territory. And this is a huge territorial claim to Armenia. Is there any legal ground upon which Azerbaijan has to put forth these demands to Armenia?
No, there's no legal ground, but like in any peace negotiation or treaty or what have you, there will be demands and requirements from both sides. So they have no legal ground for it, but it's also not illegal. It's just whether it's reasonable or not, feasible or not, realistic or not. When it comes to, you know, the constitution changing, I mentioned this in my last interview, it's like, I kind of get it, you know, we do have a reference in our constitution to Nagorno-Karabakh, and to the extent that what part of the peace treaty is going to be the recognition of territorial integrity that includes this territory, I understand the concern.
But their constitution also makes a reference to the Musavat, Azerbaijan.
Thank you. So, no, come on. It's obviously what the problem is that...
Which also contains a claim to territorial integrity of Armenia.
Okay, well, you answered the question for me, so...
Would you please do that as the expert?
The unreasonableness comes from the fact that they keep demanding things from us, and I couldn't see us doing the same when I saw in their constitution that they had a similar issue with their constitution. So I wasn't understanding why we weren't raising the issue. Now I see that we are. So the Prime Minister of Armenia has mentioned it recently in his press conference. I've seen the Foreign Minister of Armenia also make the statement, you know, well, Azerbaijan has a problem too. Even if we kept the constitutions the same, once we have this peace treaty that, you know, this is legally speaking, once you have the peace treaty that recognizes the territorial integrity of both sides, it will supersede the situation before. It's not like, oh, oops, look at our constitution, it says this, so now we have to act on it. No, this is just an issue of bad faith on Azerbaijan's side. So if they want us to change our constitution, they have to change theirs too.
International observers said Azerbaijan's elections were devoid of real competition amid diminishing respect for fundamental freedoms, but efficiently prepared, while Russian MFA says that the Western organizations are biased on the issue. What's your commentary as an expert on human rights, an independent international expert on the situation of human rights in general and in particular in regard to the parliamentary elections in Azerbaijan?
Well, I mean, I think that it's very obvious that those elections and every set of elections before that are unfair, and they are not really run, it's not truly democratic. I mean, there was video footage of a man stuffing the ballot box, and to be, you know, I was like, oh, do we still do that? Is there still literally stuffing the ballot box happening? It's caught on camera. Nobody questions it, and the OSCE came out with a statement that said, you know, that basically confirmed that this was not, it didn't go according to the standards of a real democratic type election. What's more concerning, I think, is the massive crackdown on dissidents, opposition, journalists, human rights defenders, anybody who thinks for themselves. And it's so close to these elections. You know, it's a cyclical thing. Every time there are elections, they get jailed. So there's no free media, there's no real space for discussion about, you know, what is wrong with this. And they do it every single time. And we're seeing it again now. And now it has even an extra layer where they are targeting Azerbaijani peace activists who sympathize with Armenians, you know, like, or even just want to have a conversation with an Armenian. This will get you thrown in jail for the rest of your life. Like, it's getting really, really out of control.
And these are peace builders.
Yes, of course. They're just students.
Makes anyone suspicious of Azerbaijan's intentions to sign a peace treaty at all?
They'll sign the treaty as long as it's entirely in their favor. You know, they'll sign the treaty, but that's not the point. That people like me, okay, people like the peace activist who was arrested recently, Baru Samarov, people like this, we don't care about the treaty, we care about real peace, actual peace. What's on that paper, and you know, I know it's really depressing, but most peace treaties get violated. And you know, it doesn't hold until you've got the real will to have this peace, to have this coexistence. So it's an important step. I'm not going to downplay it, but it doesn't look like it's going in the direction of an actual lasting peace if people who want to start having conversations with us are going to risk their lives for it. Like, that doesn't sound like there's a real will for peace, you know.
Should Armenia, in your opinion, drop claims in international courts against Baku for the sake of the peace treaty?
No. No way. Absolutely not.
Why not?
No, because, I mean, because you cannot have peace without justice. This isn't about the peace treaty, this is about the victims. And if again, you know, long picture, I understand, like, it depends on the claim, but not the ICJ and not the ECHR claims, no, and certainly not an action before the International Criminal Court, unless the peace treaty involves some other mechanism to bring justice to these people, okay? Then I would say fine, but I'm speaking really as an advocate for the victims of these wars. You can't take that away from them.
Can we say that dropping charges in international courts, hypothetically speaking, will leave us even more defenseless before Baku, even if a peace treaty is signed?
No, I think my concern is more that it will be an impediment to actual lasting peace. The people will be very, very upset. It will breed mistrust. It will breed resentment. You need to have a process to bring justice to the victims, and the victims are there. It's all, this entire country has been victimized. You know, it's not a small group, and it's got to be, you know, it's got to be a justice for. I know people don't like to hear both sides, but for both sides, this is about. It's about peace between both countries, okay? But in our case, given that the massively disproportionate amount of crimes that were committed against Armenians in the 2020 war, this situation can be brought, not the 2020 war, but ever since 2022, and the ethnic cleansing of the Armenians of Nagorno-Karabakh, it's one of the largest, most efficient, and fastest ethnic cleansing in modern history. I haven't seen something like this. We can't just drop that. Like, Armenians will not be okay with a peace treaty that doesn't somehow have a resolution for what happened there, yeah?
Last but not least, prisoners of war are still in Baku prisons. Artsakh leadership is still in Baku prisons, and we have a silent international community. Your comments, please.
I think that we should, I know that, you know, we can't keep blaming the international community for everything. When it comes to this final group, okay, because the group was much bigger, and we did get a lot of our POWs back. The biggest group was, you know, back when Armenia supported or endorsed Azerbaijan's candidacy for the COP29, we got 32 POWs back. I mean, everyone likes to think, oh, you know, it was like a confidence building measure. I know that even Armenia says it that way, but to me, it's like obvious it was a trade. It was a trade, and we got a lot of our boys back. So that was good. This final group, I only see the real result coming from Armenia including them as part of the peace package. You know, like, there shouldn't be, no matter what anyone thinks of anyone, there shouldn't be a single Armenian in an Azerbaijani jail. We need to get them back. They are Armenian, they are our people, and they are not supposed to be there. I mean, if Azerbaijan could negotiate to get an axe murderer like Ramil Safarov back from Hungary for, like, literally murdering somebody, we can do this much for our people, okay? So they should be part of a peace package to return them all, whatever that means. And if that doesn't happen, you know, we're gonna just have to keep fighting and doing what we can to persuade people to, yeah, try to persuade Azerbaijan to eventually pardon, because most of these people have been convicted of crimes in Azerbaijan. In fact, I think all of them. So it will need a pardon from President Aliyev, who will then release them. But I don't know how long that could take.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Expert on international law, Sheila Palin, sat down with the First Analytical tonight.